need balance in order for you to be okay. And that's why after being under fire, it's time for you to go to water. If you what it do, what the business is, word on the street, Jeezy on the handle is. Get your mind right. What's up, balancing beings? Welcome back to another divinely guided message, a divinely channeled message on Wu Wei Soul Guidance. I appreciate your return, balancing beings. Oh my goodness. It's so good to see y'all. I've been thinking about recording this message all day because the message is something that has been developed over a course of days. So I really appreciate you all returning. Thank you. Hello. Hey, hello. 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 Hey, hello. Hey, hello. Beautiful balancing beings. What a divine season we are in. I wanted to connect with you because I promised in the last week or so that I would come to you with the message about going to the water, and I meant that we were going to go there. It's so important for us to get this message out, but as you know, the divine a lot of times brings me pieces of messages, so I have to come to you just at the right time, and I'm hoping that whoever comes across this message, it comes in divine timing. All of these messages are timeless, so really just take your time. Here recently, one of the sub messages that I have been receiving aside from go to the water is self-regulation, and it became obvious to me that it was time for me to share the message once that piece came into play. So I was actually just watching this video, and just so happens this man was given a backstory about how he went into a store in pain, and someone suggested to him that instead of getting, a different sort of pain medication because he was at a convenience store, they suggested that he go ahead and get the Midol instead of a different pain reliever because they were out of Tylenol. And him being a man, he didn't know what side effects come with that, but in all actuality, and of course this was a joke, but in all actuality, men have different side effects from that particular medication just due to everything that's in it that's dissimilar to that of something that you can share with both men and women. Midol, of course, is for cramping and menstruation, whereas Tylenol is for pain in all adults. So I think part of the message is that you use your intuition as well as your instincts. Don't let anyone convince you of anything. Don't step away from situations and take action without doing your research or knowing what you know. I think that that's a really big message, and self-regulation requires you to be that way as well. There's no way in the world that you could get to a place of balance if everything in your life requires you going back to another person to seek validation or to seek the answers or to seek clarity. or to come to a resolution, it's so important for us to be able to use our instincts as well as our intuition. And it's funny because a lot of times people are speaking to intuition when the Most High has given us both in duality. Our Creator has given us the ability to use patterns or to use things in nature in order to come to a certain place of discovery outside of your intuition. You were made to be instinctual as well. Now that brings me back to the greater point of going to the water. Self-regulation is definitely like anything else that we're able to measure because of our own experience, our own individual experiences, or that of being able to experience things in groups. We're able to come together and relate, or either disagree because of what we experience. Self-regulation, to me as a child, was not really spoken of as much, although we were told, or people around me were told, because I did have the opportunity to observe people in different environments, coming up in different environments that I had as a constant. But self-regulation to me didn't become as clear. I didn't have that much clarity around self-regulation because of how self-regulation was presented to me. And I think that a lot of people in our communities, regardless of your background, have experienced, maybe coming to terms with self-regulation in different ways than our counterparts because of belief systems. Self-regulation to me only looked like, really blind acceptance, because people around me were not willing to share reasoning. When I asked for reasoning, but I did not know how to articulate it, I think that, it's hard for people to regulate themselves if they're being taught by people who have not learned how to strike balance, who have not learned how to self-regulate. They've been asked to accept things that they're not okay with. A lot of times, coming to a place of acceptance, unfortunately, under the constructs that we live, a lot of things in our environments have resulted in us self-regulating in unhealthy ways because we've been abused to get to self-regulation. So some of us become empathic, where you become quote unquote overly sensitive to what's happening in your environment, and then you choose to always put others before yourself, and then you're left at a deficit. But then there are people who learn how to self-regulate from abusers or abusive tactics, and those people choose to become just as bad as their abusers. And while they may show up in a status of success, unfortunately, those abusive ways that they learned turn into the way that they self-regulate. So it becomes unhealthy in other people's lives. And, this could go into the psychology in terms of, how people show up in relationships. The duality of it all is that a lot of times, instead of having balanced relationships, you have toxic relationships where you have someone who is more of the avoidant person in the relationship, and then you have the more anxious person. A lot of people would like to say that, these pathways are not chosen, but they truly are. If you're in an abusive environment, you have the opportunity to, as an adult or somebody at the phase of adolescence, you have that choice to say, as an adult, I am or I am not going to be the abuser. Maybe I decide that I'm going to take the most positive route, and I'm going to become, that anchor in the community who shows that servitude is more important than taking the low road, and choosing the lower frequency in life to do wrong by people, or to choose to be an abuser, so to speak. Now, I know I just said a lot, but the message of going to the water really has to do with self-regulation. As an empath, I feel really, really sorry for the state of the world, and there's nothing new up under the sun. People have been dealing with suffrage for years and years and years to no end, and the way that self-regulating in an unhealthy way, it shows up in our behaviors as accepting codependent relationships. It shows up in our lives as showing up and accepting toxic relationships. It allows us to accept toxic environments, not to set boundaries, and also it leaves us at deficits when significant things happen in our lives. A lot of people are suffering right now from being so selfless that they've not been able to transmute energy, or because they're unaware of how to choose self and to actually take other people's experiences, or observing those experiences in other people and taking the opportunity to work towards vibrating at the highest frequency is going to be key in self-regulating. Self-regulation sometimes looks like, after a significant period of time happens in your life and you're left with no one but yourself, but you've been grounding yourself in the purpose of constantly doing for others, that you're going to have to recondition yourself into a more optimal or a more healthy position where you're giving yourself back what it is that you need in order to fill your temple and to rejuvenate yourself, to re-energize yourself, to refill yourself. Going to the water, this message is so important, because people who have left long-term relationships or long-term jobs, or maybe you've dealt with caregiving for a family member where it felt like you had no choice, but because you've always shown up as that person's caregiver, now you're left at a deficit because you've been imbalanced the whole time. A lot of you need to go to the water. I had a vision a couple of weeks back regarding this map, and it was a map that at the top of the map, it had a hieroglyphic sign that looked like the hieroglyphic water. And as the Most High continued to show me this vision, the hieroglyphic water was almost omitted from the page that I was seeing the map, because the map was being pushed down to where I could only see the bottom of the map. And there was, of course, this map looked like a physical map because it was showing the area, but it was showing that there was a landmass here and then there was water here. As the page continued to go down and I wasn't able to go back up at all, it was almost like a Super Mario game where back in the day you couldn't go backwards. You could only go forward. And as the page came down, the page started to show where instead of there being this receding line where you could see the separation between the landmass as well as the water, you could only start to see the water. And the vision had me thinking, well, Most High, what is it that you're trying to get me to see? Because the hieroglyphic sign reminded me of the Aquarius sign, zodiac sign, which in all actuality, that is an air element. Why would it be related to water? So I asked the Most High for more. Why would the air element be related to water? And I remember writing this down, but eventually I was taken down a rabbit hole to learn that the hieroglyphic sign actually is related to Aquarius, but the hieroglyphic actually means water of cups. So it could be someone that I'm talking to today who may be in Aquarius, or maybe there's a placement of yours that is Aquarius, but because this map moved all the way down into more of the southern region, I also wondered if somebody has a north node placement of Aquarius. But just to speed things along, if you're familiar with alchemy and the signs in alchemy, you know that there is an upright triangle, and then there is a down facing triangle in alchemy. And as I continue to look into the Water of Cups, I came across the two triangles being downside as well as upright. And what I learned from this website that's very random, I was just asked to look up this information by the Most High. What I learned is that the symbol for fire in alchemy is the red upward pointing triangle, the spiritual element of fire stolen by the gods of Prometheus and given to humanity. Fire is so intimately connected with the warmth ether that they are really one and the same thing, making this the closest element to the world of spirit, the etheric world. In earlier times, our own inner fire, our blood, burnt much more strongly than today. We could survive much more easily in the harshly colder climates of the ice ages by being much more in tune with nature herself. Now we have lost contact with our true nature. We have become reliant on an external warmth, fire. Now, what that's saying to me is that we do have an internal fire. And just speaking about these two triangles, balancing beings, it became very, very much so clear to me that alchemy, the way to balance, the way to really leverage our environment, our atmosphere, the universe, everything that the Most High has created for us, all of these things are working together for our good, and these elements are actually fire as well as water that we've been talking about. And the upright triangle versus the downsided triangle represented in alchemy, or that of manifestation, is also used in Judaism as well as the Hebrew faith with the Star of David. Both these symbols, the upside triangle and the upside down triangle, are used to promote balance. And that spoke a lot to me. But let's continue to read here. The symbol for water in alchemy is the blue downward pointing triangle. Water supports the vitality of life on Earth, and everything that loses its solidity and becomes liquid loses its individuality, flowing back into the whole. The water element has the ability to reunite matter into the flowing rivers and the vast seas of the world. Water contains the feminine aspects of reunification, creation, and enfolding, allowing us to solve problems and disputes, create community, and build our homes in a healthy and protective way. Our planet, when seen from space, shows us a face of more than 75% water, a wonderful blue oasis of life in our current planetary system, a biosystem in perfect balance, creating the home for a huge diversity of life forms swimming in the ocean, soaring the moisture-laden airwaves, or living by the rivers, lakes, and inland seas of the continents. If we join fire and water, we create this double triangle with diamond form, known in alchemy as the cosmic egg, the creation point of our universe in the womb of the worlds at the beginning of time and space. The cosmic egg, and you see the seas above, the spiritual ether of fire, and the seas below, the worldly ether of water. These two seas stayed separate, although joined, the original duality. The tension field generated at the boundary of these two etheric seas is where our visible material world has evolved. We are the sons and daughters of the Father above, spirit fire, and the mother below, earthly waters, the original fire and water, dark and lightness. If we join fire and water at the points instead of at their bases, we create this hourglass form in an alchemy as the Holy Grail. Yes, this is the true Holy Grail that everyone would like to find, not just the alchemists. You can see that the fire is underneath, just like the special heating furnaces in the alchemist studios we saw in the painting above. The water or fluid being heated is the bowl above. This is where alchemy begins. Not only do we need the right ingredients in the bowl, we also need the right sort of fire in the furnace below. Then we create the true gold sunlight, living spirit. So our final drawing becomes the Philosopher's Stone, Solomon's Seal, the Star of David, the heart of the flower, the sun. The reason why it is very simple, the reason why this very simple symbol raises so much dust in the world is because of its immense power. You can see it here for yourself. It is one of the true end goal of all alchemy, hiding in full view. It is the mixing of fire and water, the heart of the flower of life. It is the solution to creating oneness in nature, to finding balance. We need to create a third aspect from the living fire of the spirit, love, and the living water of the soul, light. Recreate life in physical matter. All of life contains the fire, love of the Father, and the light, wisdom of the mother. Love, light, and life. Now, I don't have a clue other than the information that I've given you and what I'm about to tell you. I don't know any other reason why the Most High put me particularly on this pathway to find this information. This article was one of the first that I saw when being guided down a rabbit hole to find out more about this particular topic. But I know that these messages are about you, first of all, coming into a place of balance, but also a lot of you have been under fire, in fire your whole lives. And it's time for you to find refuge for yourself to withstand the next set of tests of time that it may seem like that the Most High is putting you through. Your life is being opened up after having experienced time under fire. Like I was saying earlier, a lot of you have been through major levels of suffrage, and you need balance in order for you to be okay. And that's why after being under fire, it's time for you to go to water. If you think about people in spiritual practice or in religion, there is this balance of going through the fire, having this passion and this love. Even in Christianity or other spiritual practices, people talk about the father or the mother. And there's this duality of fire representing a rampant burning that could sometimes be good, but if it's overdone, it's going to burn up everything and be, in a sense, bad. So in duality of the fire, use your wisdom in order to re-energize yourself, to make yourself whole again, to cleanse, to feel, to cry, to release, to have emotions. You are not only supposed to be under fire. You're not supposed to just be doing. You're supposed to be living and showing up whole by having your divine femininity as well as your divine masculinity. Divine masculinity is the representation of the Father, the spirit fire that everybody talks about. It's divine masculinity. But the water, the mother of the soul, the light, that femininity that seeps in and makes everything replenished and okay, that is the divine feminine. And I'm talking to a lot of people who continue to put themselves under fire instead of taking the opportunity to make themselves whole through self-regulation and mixing fire and water, the elements of fire and water, your divine masculinity and your divine femininity. On our next divinely channeled message, I'd like to go deeper with the balance and why it is needed, not only in the perspective of your relationships, but also the perspective of yourself as you go forward and behave, that you need to show up whole at all times, and you possess, regardless of what you do, femininity and masculinity. Don't let yourself go so far into one direction that you're depleted and cannot show up whole. And instead of having this divinity, you end up with lackluster, lower frequency, bad decision making, and then you end up with karmic debt. I hope that you can return soon, Butterfinger BBs and my balancing beings. Of course, I'm your soul Oracle Robyn, and I love you no matter what you do. And as always, don't change, squirrel for me, babe. Don't change, squirrel. It's important to me that you know you are free, 'cause I never was for me, babe. Don't change, squirrel. Peace. I'll talk to you later.